Welcome back to Empower Families 星光家园. In episode 6, we talk about the COVID gap, how the lockdowns physically affected our children's developing brains, leading to struggles with focus and attention in the classroom. Today, we're going to talk about the ultimate antidote to the gap, play.
Yeah, play. So simple and fun, right?
Yep, that's right. And joining me today is Joyce. Many of you know her as a mentor and an advocate for the neurodivergent families. But today, she's bringing one of her most important roles to the table. She is also a grandmother of a 4-year-old girl.
And this is actually the best job in the world because being a grandparent, it gives me the opportunity to flashback what I was doing with both my daughters when I was a parent. Looking at how Janet herself responded to my teaching methods showed me what some of the things are not necessarily the way it should be. And as I now play or work with my little girl, these memories flash back and I try to unlearn and relearn the steps towards play.
Exactly, society has convinced us that play is a waste of time. I hear parents say, but my child plays all the time. She plays math games on the tablet for hours.
Honestly, that was also what I thought as a parent in my younger days, that play has no relationship to learning. But when I became a parent, I thought play was still important, but we might just go on to restricted educational gameplay. And as I moved on to parent coaching, I learned a lot more through observing how Janet react. I realized that play-based has actually got a very strong foundation to a child's learning.
Yeah, it's a huge misconception. When a child is having a tablet, they are in a 2D world. The app's algorithm is doing the heavy lifting. The screen provides the light, the sound, and the instant reward. It is a dopamine loop, but in true play. Like building a physical tower of blocks on your living room floor, the child's brain has to do the work. They have to feel the weight of the block, use spatial awareness, and deal with gravity. Tablets push buttons. True play builds actual neural pathways. Joyce, how do you define play? Is it really a waste of time?
Well, as I mentioned over the years, I realized that there is an importance in play, but I have also now realized that there are many different interpretations about play. How do you define play? So sometimes I have parents, as a parents coach, I talk about the importance of play, and parents will say, yes, my kid has got time to play every day. It's not just all studies, but when you dwell deeper into what they actually play, they're probably playing with a tablet. Some of them are given a time to play in a corner of the house doing their own imagination, okay? But do the parents really play with them, which is what I would call interactive play? And not many of them does it, which I think is really the essential part of play, which provides the child the developmental phase.
Yeah, I agree with you. So, how do you define what kind of elements that you're looking at in interactive play?
Well, interactive play is, as the word implies, is interactive, meaning that there has to be more than one person doing the play. And the importance of this is as you have another person playing with you, even if it's a parent or even another child, is it should create the interest for communications. So speech, ability to express themselves comes out under an interactive play. The other thing that can actually come in also as a parent who's engaging with it, for example, if you play a board game, okay? Board game teaches you different things, like you have to learn to take turns. You have to even, sometimes if it uses a dice, the child will learn how to count, how to move forwards or move backwards according to the rules of the game. And more importantly is the winning decision rests on how the game is played. So the child gets to experience what it is in real play. It's not about winning all the time, but it's also about losing at some time and to enjoy it as a game and not as a must-win kind of situation, which you don't experience when you're playing a tablet or when you're playing a solo. Because when you're playing a tablet, you can get through a difficult level, then what do? You press a restart, you start all over again. When you are playing solo, you get bored with the game, what do? You just move on and you play something else.
Yeah, see, the thing is that nowadays, a lot of parents say that I do spend time with my children. Okay, and what actually is happening is that the parents, maybe they were looking into the phone. In the meantime, the child was on the floor playing other things. So this is not called play.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, what do you think parents should change a bit in order to have a more interactive play together with the child?
Yes. Parents need to participate in the child's play. Okay, but parents also need to make the game enjoyable. It has to be child-led rather than parent-led, because if you are leading a play and it's something that the child is not interested in, they will not develop the things that I just mentioned earlier on, like, communication skills, vocabulary, the taking turns, because they'll just get bored and they will stop very fast. So in an interactive play, if it is not controlled, because sometimes now we know even tablets have interactive games where two parties come in and you play, but you don't have eye contact. Okay, you're basically looking at your phone, and the worst thing also is you do not use all your fine motor skills, because on a tablet at most you use 1 or 5 fingers and you get your job done. So interactive play, there are many forms. Besides doing your imaginative games with your kids or playing board games, there is this thing called messy play. And this was something that, as an OCD or someone who is actually prim and proper in the house, and especially when you stay with elderly people who can't bear messes, it was something that I was trying to avoid in my early days as a parent. But in my role as a parent coach, I have learned that messy play is actually very, very important for neurological development, because that messiness teaches the child to be able to function in different environments with different textures. And this is something that we find a lot of kids are resistant about nowadays.
Yeah, I think I do agree with you that messy play is very important, especially helping children to develop their sensory and motor development. Joyce, just now you mentioned about the parents' lead play as well as the child-led play. What's the difference between both of them?
Let's just take a very simple one, Lego. Because every child has a Lego, every house has some form or other Lego kind of set. So as a parent, when we go in, we are very object-oriented or very task-oriented, and we say, let's build a plane. And many of us might even follow instructions to build the plane. That is parent-led, because the parent knows what they want to do. Maybe the child is the one who decides the plane, but the process of building the plane likely is led by the parent. Oh, red block, you need to take the 6 blocks, which is red color, or the next one is blue color, and so on. A child-led play could be different. A child-led play might be that, he chooses the plane, but instead of using red, he decides to use green. And instead of layering it on top, as the instruction says, they might want to just do it differently. And most of the time, if it is parent-led, we tend to correct the child. If it's a child-led play, we accept what the child is doing, and we sometimes would just act curious to ask the child, like, oh, why is it like that? The picture here shows it this way, and why is and they might just tell you funny things like, oh no, this is a helipad, aeroplanes, they need to land somewhere, so this is actually where the plane lands or something. So by doing so, by following child-led, you allow them to say out what is in their mind. And if they are not able to say it, but they can construct certain words, you can actually ask them like, oh, is this a place where the aeroplane is supposed to land? And if they say yes, then that's where you can start telling them if it's a helicopter, it's a helipad. If it is a plane that they are building, then it will actually be the runway. So this is how vocabulary gets developed, learning gets developed without doing it in a structured manner.
Yeah, I think children will build their confidence as well to express themselves and to build their own opinions and to just say out what they think.
Exactly, because we have to also see that with the digital age, the children's development is very, very different from our time. And nobody likes to be corrected all the time. In fact, if we look at our children today, they never like you to say they are wrong. So one way for us to allow this correction to happen is to question or to actually raise curiosity, asking them questions, so that they themselves might discover that, oh, this thing actually doesn't work. After you ask them a few more times, then they'll say, oh yeah, it doesn't work. The aeroplane cannot be on top of the runway or something. But that is discovery learning.
So the body is the foundation, but play is also a laboratory of the mind. At 4 years old, your granddaughter is probably at the peak of pretend play, right?
Yes, all the time.
So can you give us one or two examples of what kind of pretend play do you do with her daily?
Oh, actually, she's very good. She will come out with the pretend play. And like before I left here for this recording, she was a bit upset with our helper this morning because the helper placed something that she had an intention. She had a lock actually, and she wanted the lock to be with the keys. It's a toy lock, but the helper didn't realize it, so she took the lock down. And when she came down in the morning and saw it, it was like, who touched my lock? So she was a bit upset. And then before I left, she had in mind to play Three Little Pigs. And she was telling the mother, after this, we're going to play Three Little Pigs. And with the helper out, she only had her nanny, herself, and her mummy. So I jumped in to tell her, we will have a problem playing Three Little Pigs because I'm not going to be in. I have a meeting, I'm going out. Then she'll say, okay, then we will have the wolf and two pigs. Because so we said, no, you actually can have three pigs. If you're not upset with Emily, then she can be the other pig or she can be the wolf. So you still can have your three pigs and the wolf. So pretend play firstly allows, if you actually study properly, you will realize that it actually tells you their emotions. Right? I had a third person there to be the third pig, but because she was emotionally still angry with the person, so it's discounted. So she just said, there's only two pigs and one. Okay. So it allows them to express themselves very safely in their own home ground. And if you pay attention to all these little things that happen, you will be able, because they can't tell you I'm angry, I'm upset. But sometimes they do it through action and sometimes they do it through words. And in this case, obviously, is the way she counts her pig. It becomes two pigs instead of three pigs. But it also allows you to know what is happening. Like she goes already to kindergarten. So it also allows you to know what happens in school, because in one of her pretend play, she will suddenly say, she has her toys and her toys are her student and she'll play the teacher thing. And then halfway through, you would just say, Rabbit, you are misbehaving, time out. And so you get to know that, oh, this must have been from school. And then you start probing and you say, time out? What is that? And then she'll explain to you what time out is and say, you mean teacher did give you time out? And she would start saying, no, it's not me and it's so and so. And then we are able to ask her like, what is it that the person did, that they have time out? So as parents, one of the things we know, some more proactive parents, is the minute they fetch the child, they would just say, how was school today? And then the kid would say, fine. because the child won't know where to start. But in these moments like this, it actually triggers a memory and they're able to share with you. So you even know what's happening in school. It could be, someone knocks somebody and they're acting it out in play.
Yeah, I think I do really agree with you in a way that the pretend play, it is a way to help a child to build their self-regulation. Okay, how to regulate their emotion. Okay, what do you think that what are the important elements that's embedded within pretend play that is so important?
Pretend play puts them in a position to think. So cognitively, they have to figure out what to do. And it gives them a chance to live their world the way they think it should, even though it may not be right. So, for example, they may always feel that, oh, when you're sick, you go and see the doctor, and hospital becomes a very scary thing. But when you do a pretend play and you create a scene where someone suddenly injures the feet and then the ambulance has to come, you need to use the stretcher, which was, by the way, what my granddaughter did with the nanny. Suddenly one day they decided that there was an injury and then they put the toy onto the mattress and then they treat it like, that's a stretcher, and then take them to the hospital, and then what they do. So that makes that hospital visit less scary, more acceptable. So there's a lot of things that can happen, not just touching emotion, but touching understanding, clearing fears as well, depending on how you lead the play.
Yeah, I think it just also helps them to observe more, okay, and build their imagination.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also for them to get a chance to see the world as they see it. So what is very important for us as parents is consciously, I have to say consciously because it's not easy. When we play with the children, we want to make sure that they do things the right way because we are fearful that people will laugh at them or whatever. But too much of correction during the play can also hinder their imagination.
Yeah, true
And
enough.
what we need, actually, very importantly, as we were speaking to my kindergarten, no, as we were speaking to the principal before we admitted our granddaughter to this particular school, well, she made one comment, besides being academically good, a child has also got to be streetwise. And you can only learn to be streetwise if you see beyond the box.
Yeah.
And this is what play allows us to do.
As we wrap up, we want to leave our viewers with a way to look at their children's play differently. Joyce, what about parents, those who are busy with work or home? And how can they find the time to play with their children?
Okay, play is not the task. Okay, and it is not something that you need to spend a lot of time with the child. I would think, well, even I myself can't spend 1-2 hours playing with the child. So what you can actually do is, if you can consciously put aside in your diary like a timetable where you spend only 15 minutes or maximum 30 minutes a day to really fully concentrate, playing with your child in a different way. It can be just doing coloring together with the child, or playing an interactive game, or just pretend play. But 15 minutes done daily is already a lot of time in a whole week. And I think if we consciously want to do something to really spend time with our child, 15 minutes, half an hour maybe might be still very challenging for some families, especially if they have more than one kid. But 15 minutes a day, I think if we want to make a conscious effort, we should be able to. And playing with a child is going to be so much more affordable than buying a device for the child to play, because a lot of the apps now are on subscriptions, or sending them out to jungle gym because you already have to pay an entry. Even though it's 60 ringgit, end time, you still have to spend 60 ringgit. But if you have 15 minutes a day and you play with them, even if it means just 5 days a week, you would have already got 75 minutes in the whole week playing with the child.
Yeah, thank you for sharing with us, Joyce. To me, I think parents need to really, really reconsider again whether play is a waste of time. Play is very important for your child, and it is a way to help them to build their emotional regulation, their imagination, their observation, and their motor skills as well as their sensory skills.
Yes, and also cognitive as well, depending on the games that you play with them.
Yep. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you in our next episode.
Bye.